Our next panelist is Mr. Yasin Samatar, Senior Multilateral Cooperation Specialist at the International Labour Organization, ILO. Mr. Samatar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed panelists, I'm pleased to provide the following remarks on behalf of the ILO Special Representative to the United Nations, Ms. Cynthia Samuel Olujuwon, who was not able to be here with you today, but nonetheless wanted me to stress her commitment to the promotion of rights of persons with disabilities. Disability inclusion is integral to the ILO's constitution and mandate, as it embodies our commitment to promoting social justice and ensuring that all individuals, regardless of their abilities, have the right to work in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and human freedom. Over the past 5 years, we have made significant strides in advancing disability inclusion, driven by our active participation in the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy. The ILO fully embraces the UNDIS framework and its rigorous annual reporting requirements, as they provide us with the robust structure needed to realize our vision of comprehensive disability inclusion. The ILO's achievement under this strategy are the direct result of the unity of purpose from our senior leadership, particularly our Director General, Mr. Gilbert Wangbo, who has firmly established a mandate for the ILO to become an employer of choice for persons with disabilities. An example of this commitment was the session on disability inclusion held by our global management team at the annual meeting in January. Having said this, I wish to offer 3 main reflections of the ILO's work today regarding the theme of our panel. First is the area of networks. Before we began implementing the UNDIS, we understood that we needed to take time to build a culture of sharing, learning, and leading on disability inclusion. The first group we developed was our ILO UNDIS custodians, a dozen or so colleagues throughout the organization who are responsible for the rollout of their particular UNDIS indicators, from employment to accessibility of premises, IT and meetings, to communications, to programming, to procurement. In addition, we also have a network of about 100 ILO colleagues at our headquarters and field offices who form what we call the Disability Champions Network. Our champions are staff throughout the ILO, admin staff, technical specialists, directors of units and departments, people who are catalysts for change, continuously improving accessibility and inclusion in the offices and departments where they work. We organize regular meetings with them to provide guidance and advice on how to address disability inclusion in their daily work. Like other UN entities and comments made here today, the ILO has an independent group of ILO staff with disabilities and staff with dependents with disabilities who formed the Employee Resource Group on Disability Inclusion. Second is the area of learning journeys on disability inclusion. Building on disability awareness among our staff is key to achieving the goal of being a fully inclusive organization. We have an online course which is mandatory throughout our organization for staff, where they can explore the numerous ways of looking at disability and develop a new vocabulary for inclusion. We also had the good fortune to work with the UNDIS team and our International Training Center in Turin to develop a 5-week course for all UNDIS focal points throughout the UN system. This is the final week of the 5th edition of this highly appreciated course, and there will be a new edition in the autumn. Third is the area of disability inclusion strategies. Over the past 4 years, our disability inclusion work was supported by the adoption of an organization-wide disability inclusion policy and our first multi-annual strategy for the years 2020 to 2023. Our strategy mirrors the UNDIS accountability framework, but adapts it to the ILO. We're currently in the process of drafting a new strategy to cover the next 3 years. And to prepare for this, we undertook a disability inclusion survey, as well as an independent evaluation of the first strategy, both of which have provided useful insights on the areas which require more improvement. The progress so far, as reflected in our last report submitted to the UNDIS team here in New York, and the new strategy will be presented to our own governing body in the autumn. Before I conclude, Mr. President, I wish to stress that we have not gotten everything right. and we still have a way to go before we can consider ourselves a fully disability-inclusive organization and a UN system employer of choice for persons with disabilities. But we will continue to collaborate with other UN entities and all stakeholders to ensure that we can learn from each other and also promote the required system-wide changes in the multilateral fora. Thank you, Mr. Chair.